Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, baby. Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. It is the Michael Dukes Show. Good morning to you for this Thursday edition of the big radio program. Fingers crossed. We're all doing good here this morning. We're ready to go. One final day until Firearms Friday coming up tomorrow on the program. Working on some folks, including JD Tuchili from Reason Magazine and Chris Chang, Top Shot champion, actually going to come in a little early to talk with us about some stuff that is coming up here shortly on this. It should be a good discussion coming up on tomorrow's program. Today, it's you and me and the headlines. And boy, howdy, are there some headlines today. I will tell you what you cannot make this stuff up. I mean, even if you tried, you could not make this stuff up. Just shocking. So we're going to have a lot of discussions today. I'm going to give you a lot of my thoughts on what's happening. But it's not just me this morning. It's also going to be you. We're opening up the phone lines. If you would like to sound, yes. Brian says, I am afraid. Yes, be afraid. Be very afraid this morning because wow. Just the willful blindness of people is amazing. I'll just say it that way. It's amazing right now. But phone lines are open for this morning all day. 319-527-3864. I know I still haven't fixed the Alaska number. It is such a pain. It's so problematic. 319-527-3864. If you would like to call in this morning and talk about, whatever's on your mind or whatever we're talking about, if you want to sound off and just whatever, even if you want to steer the boat. And I'm even probably, I might even talk about the boob tube. I might even give you some of my recent recommendations on recreation television shows or YouTube channels that I've been watching, because there is some fascinating stuff out there. And sometimes we just need to unplug from the world and watch some stuff and just laugh or cry or whatever. It's all good. So it's just gonna be me and you. It is a coffee. I should have more coffee this morning. I had my one little cup because I reheated it from yesterday. Oh man, that's so bad, isn't it? But I don't mind reheated coffee. But I didn't take the time this morning to make another full pot. So just bear with me if I sound a little not put together because it was a small cup and it was reheated. So it's just, it is what it is. Yuck. No, there's not something good about, I don't know. I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. Reheated coffee. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, not necessarily, it's not as good as a fresh brewed, but get your life together, Dukes. I mean, hey, sometimes there's only so many hours in the day. So many hours in the day. And we'll get to it. Rick just said, haha, let's unplug from the world and watch YouTube. Okay, so I didn't mean unplug from the I just mean let's think about something other than, you know what I meant. Gosh, the chat room is so literal this morning, just so literal and judgmental. You're all judgmental. Yeah, you think less of me because I reheated my coffee. Anyway, you can join us in the chat room, by the way, and set these boogers straight in here. All right. Just come over to facebook.com/Michael Duke Show and join the crowd over there. We got 40 or 50 people that are hanging out and doing their thing. All right. So, and I'm going to be reading because the chat room is on fire this morning. Life's too short for reheated coffee, cheap bourbon, and tofu. Well, I like 2 of the 3 of those things. I actually like tofu in certain dishes. I like some Asian food, so I like me some tofu. I mean, it's not a meat substitute by any means, but, and cheap bourbon, though. No, nobody's doing cheap bourbon. I mean, somebody is, but not me. So I got you on that. All right. Sorry. Sidebar. I mean, I feel like it's a squirrel. It's a squirrel. No shower today, unless he decides to just arbitrarily join out of the goodness of his heart. As I mentioned yesterday, he had a family emergency, and he had to fly out of state late last week and just got back into Juneau yesterday morning in time for the budget process. And which, I mean, he could have just stayed home at that point. I mean, it's, he could have just stayed home and been whatever. Because it didn't matter. It didn't even, these people had already decided what they were going to do, and it didn't matter a whit what Mike Shower or Rob Myers or Shelley Hughes, didn't matter what they did at all. It was like, didn't even matter. And so anyway, we'll talk about that. What else we got here? There's an article from Matthew Petty over at Reason, which I read a couple days ago, and it's been sitting up on my computer at work because I'm like, I've got to talk about this. I've got to talk about this. I know it's a national issue and we usually steer away from this, but this article it got me. It reinforces the fact that we need a fundamental change. I keep remembering that Jack Nicholson quote from the first Batman movie. Remember when Jack Nicholson played the Joker and he's riding around with the megaphone and he says, "This town needs an enema." That's what I think of every time the federal government steps in and the do-gooders. It's all I could think of. That's the only thing. We've often talked on this program. Wow, we are all over the place this morning. Just bear with me, or hang out. We've often talked about this program how sometimes I'm unsure as to whether or not we have enough political will or time to reverse the clock on the collapse of the republic. Right? I've said that. I mean, maybe not in those fancy words, but sometimes it's just we've gone too far forward to go back. We can't go back we can't return to the glory days. And sometimes the backwards looking 2020 vision is more nostalgic and rose colored than it should be. But sometimes I agree that it's just, the people are too enamored of the system. There's too much dependency. We could never, we can't, that somehow I just think that the whole thing's got to come unstuck before we can rebuild it. And after reading this story in Reason, it just gives me more reasons to say, yeah, I mean, if this is the level of stuff, and this is about a bill that would give the Treasury Department nearly unlimited power to destroy nonprofits in the country. And you're like, well, that would never happen here. I mean, okay. Except it has, but okay, I'm with you. So we'll get into that, Bill. What else do we got here? The university. Oh, remember we were talking about the pouty graduate students yesterday who were like we don't make enough money as graduate students. To which many of you said, I worked a full-time job and went to school, and what is your problem, kind of thing. Well, it looks like after their their big powwow and their march against it looks like they may have gotten their way after all. And so we'll talk about that. And Mary Peltola. Oh man, Mary. There's something about Mary. She talks a good game. She really talks a good game, and she has got this whole political thing down pat. I mean, like, putting bills together that on the surface look like they're going to be great for Alaska. And then at the last minute, she pulls back, and then she encourages her colleagues to vote no. And then she votes present, and she is playing the game to the absolute hilt. I mean, everything that she can do to look good on one side while actually playing and pandering to the other side, and saying she's an Alaska protector. Well, love or hate Don Young, at least there was a guy that you pretty much knew where he stood, right? You could agree with him or you could disagree with him, but you at least knew where you stood on. Mary Peltola is like trying to hold what are they that I was thinking about that kid stuff, the gloopy gloop that you just like trying to hold it and squeeze it in your finger. It just kind of gloops out. You just can't get it. You can't. It's amorphous. You're not going to pin her down on nothing. Nada. Mary Peltola also problematic here as we go through. And then the governor has already signaled his opposition to any new correspondence school program legislation. Now, he hasn't said he's going to veto it, but the administration's position is that the judge's court ruling was so broad that we need to wait until the Supreme Court weighs in on this. And he doesn't want to sign any piece of legislation which in one way it's either a political maneuver, which if it is, good for him, but also he is right. I mean, how many times have we seen laws be made in the process of a crisis, right? Oh, we've got to do something. And so then they make, Patriot Act or whatever. They make some law which has, decades of unintended consequences because the law was made in the midst of a crisis instead of, thinking it out, waiting for the courts to decide or decisions to be made or anything else. And I think that's where we're at right here. I mean, the petitioners in this court case, the NEA, Scott Kendall and company, they got more than they bargained for. But at the same time, it was almost a double win for them because not only were they able to sabotage the overall correspondence program, on top of that, they created a crisis in education for the correspondence students, which they can now exploit. Yes, we will now exploit the crisis, right? So the governor is right. I think it is stance of saying, well, we probably should wait to see what the Supreme Court says on this. But we'll talk a little bit more about that one as we go ahead with the program this morning. But I also want to hear from you, the listeners of this program. We'd love to hear what you have to say, so feel free to smile and dial. Again, 319-527-3864 if you want to sound off this morning and chat with us. I'd love to hear what you have to say. I love to hear it. Love to hear you. It is Thursday. It is the Michael Duke Show. It is warmed over coffee day. I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I mean, warmed over coffee is better than no coffee. I will die on that hill. Change my mind. Back with more. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Oh, man. Yeah, Mary Peltola is fighting against grocery monopoly. Did you see that? I was watching YouTube last night, and there was some ad for fighting corporate. Oh, I should have written it down. I was going to write it down and look it up today. Fighting corporate something or other, some organization. And it's a PAC ad for Mary Peltola talking about how she fought against the Kroger-Albertson merger, and she's winning. And I mean, I was just like, okay, all right. There's this, Brian says he has to rethink his relationship with me because, I said tofu's okay. Tofu's okay in context. You don't eat it as a meat substitute, like I'm going to eat tofu instead of beef. Well, that's just madness. But if I'm having a big cup of hot and sour soup or maybe some Thai food, tofu's good in there, man. I like that. I like it a lot. It's good. Amy says that I unplugged on the weekends. I don't look at my phone or text. I relax on the weekends. Amy, you are a very, very smart woman because that's what I started to do, gosh, going on 15 years ago. Because I used to watch the news and I stopped. I just stopped. And for the most part, only reason I carry my phone around on the weekends if I'm doing anything is because I want to listen to my audiobook or something. It's because I'm doing something else. It's not because I'm surfing the net or looking. In fact, most weekends, people get irritated because I turn my phone on silent and I'll look down on my phone and there'll be 2 missed calls and I'll be like, hey, sorry, phone's on silent. What do you need? I mean, I don't. It's not. I'm in my house with everybody that I know or love. Why do I need anybody else to call me? Well, except for my folks. But you know what I mean. They can get past the silent sensor. So Bill's like drinking reheated Folgers and eating. It's definitely not reheated Folgers. Okay. It is delicious. It's either Beard Curler or it's St. Nickerdoodle from North Pole Coffee Roasters or something like that. It's good coffee. That's all, too. And Sherry says, I came all the way over from YouTube to tell you people on Facebook to be nice to Michael. Reheated coffee works, but it's definitely inferior to fresh brew. Again, if you offered me, would you like a fresh brewed cup or a reheated? I'd be like, I'll take the fresh brewed. And then I'll drink the reheated afterwards. I mean, just why let good coffee go to waste, right? Oh, it bugs me to see a cup of coffee in the bottom of that carafe from yesterday. I'm like, oh man, if only I'd known. It's all good. Rick liked my movie quote. Slime. Yes, exactly. So, that slime that, the kids used to play with, she's fighting against grocery monopolies. Did you see that Trump agreed to speak at the Libertarian National Convention at DC? Oh, I did not see that. Interesting. That's interesting. That is interesting. Well, David, now you're talking some crazy talk. He says leftover coffee is just like aged wine. The longer that ages, the better. I will disagree with that. But again, reheated coffee is still better. That's a hill I will die on. I mean, that's a hill that I will die on. It's all good, man. Yeah, what are you guys, all coffee snobs? I won't drink it if it's been in that carafe longer than 3.5 minutes, throw it out. It's trash. What's up with you guys, man? Oh, man. They invited RFK Jr., Biden, and Trump to the Libertarian National Convention. Only Trump confirmed. Oh, I think RFK would. I don't know. It's like, we'll have to see. All right. Well, You guys are up, and you guys are obviously raring to go this morning, giving me my licks on the way in. Let's get back to it, shall we? Shall we do this? I think we shall. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Well, I resemble that remark. I'll say that for nothing. I will say that for nothing. Good morning and welcome to the program. It is Bill's out there being a coffee snob. He sips his freshly brewed double dead brew with his pinky up. Everybody's still giving me a hard time for drinking reheated coffee. I don't. Is it? Can I sidebar? Well, why not? It's my show. I'll sidebar. Does it bug you guys when something gets left over and it's like, oh, that's just a waste? I mean, whether it's I literally sometimes, this is a peek into my mind. I literally sometimes when I get something out of the fridge and I use it and, it's like some cheese or something. And I'm like, I use the last of it and there's this perfectly good Ziploc bag. And I'm like, is there more cheese in the fridge that I could put back in the Ziploc bag so I don't waste it? Because I feel bad. I feel bad putting it in the trash. Like, this is a perfectly good This is a perfectly good jar that these pickles come in. And I'm going to throw it away. It just seems like such a waste. Is there anything I could do with this? I mean, that's how hoarding begins. I don't think I don't know that. But it does cross my mind sometimes. Like, this is so much labor went into making this and it's still useful. What is there anything I could do with this? No? Damn it. I throw it away. But I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Like I see that 1 cup of coffee in the bottom of the carafe that's left over from the day before. And I'm like, oh, that is just such a waste. It's just a waste. And I'm thinking, oh man, I just hate it. It's just one of those things. I don't know. It's one of those things that I know about myself and I've got to watch it because, hey, ain't nobody need a hoarder. You know what I mean? My place is too small, for that kind of stuff. But I do think about it every time I throw away like a perfectly good container or plastic bag or something. And I'm like, oh, that's just, so I don't know why I sidebarred there, but here it is. All right, where are we going to start? Should we start off with Mary, Mary, quite contrary? I think we should. As I said earlier, there's just something about Mary. She just knows how to play the game. So Mary Peltola, who... She's so good at this. She is already so good at this. She was a co-sponsor of H.R. 6285. This is the Alaska's Right to Produce Act, right? I mean, this is what this act, it was a bill that would have stopped the Biden administration from locking up Alaska's congressionally designated oil and gas leasing areas, ANWR, NPRA, those kind of things. And this is a bill that she co-sponsored. And the bill would have reinstated the previously awarded and then canceled by Joe Biden oil leases in ANWR. Biden has ignored statutory requirements and has destroyed future revenues for a lot of Alaska native North Slope villages and communities. So most recently, they locked down about 13 million acres of NPRA, which was also set aside by Congress for oil and gas. So this resolution to reverse the administration's lockup of Alaska passed the House initially without Peltola's support on a vote of 214 to 199. But this whole time she was like, oh, she wants to have her cake and eat it too. See, because she sponsors the resolution, puts it together, part of the co-sponsorship, gets out there, and then turns around down the road and sends out a letter and a note to her colleagues to say, I'm voting against it. Or no, not to, that she's voting. She urges, I apologize, she urges them to vote against it. She says, I urge you to vote no on H.R. 6285. Then she doesn't even have the strength of conviction to follow up on her own advice. And when it hits the floor and she has to push the button, she votes present. This is a classic symbol of somebody trying to have it all way. She puts the bill out, then urges her colleagues to vote against it, and then takes no position on it when it's actually time for her to vote. I mean, what? Absolutely what? Now, when she put the bill out here just a few months ago, she said, I'm deeply frustrated by the reversal of these leases in Anwar. This administration showed that it's capable of listening to Alaskans with the approval of the Willow Project. And it's some of those same Inupiat North Slope communities who are the ones that are most impacted by this decision. I will continue to advocate for them and for Alaska's ability to explore and develop our natural resources. We can only get to that transition by listening to the people on the ground, yada, 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 yada. And yet, at the same time, present. Right? I'm going to do what I can. Vote against it. Present. That's exactly what happened. Here I am. I'm here to save the day with this bill. Psst. Hey, bud, don't vote for this thing. And present. I mean, is that what we're looking for in our Congress critter? I mean, I'm asking for a friend. Is this what we're looking for? Is stuff like that? I mean, that makes no sense whatsoever. Well, unless you're just there to play political games. If that's what it is, then bravo, Mary. Bravo. You've done it again. And you could tell that they're already nervous. I was just saying, I was watching YouTube last night, and I can't figure out how to get ad block on my YouTube on my television. I've tried a couple different times. But so I'm watching some ads while I'm watching a video, and this ad comes up for what was this one from? The something about corporate greed, or anyway, some PAC who doesn't say who they're paid for or anything else. You got to pay. They paid for it. You got to go to their website and dig into their financials to figure out who's funding them. But it was all about how Mary is a hero for stopping the merger of Kroger and Albertsons, and how she's looking out for you. And that's just, I mean, here it's May 1. We'd already seen some of the franking ads, and we'd already seen some of the ads from the Vote Alaska Before Party, I think, was the other group. We're already seeing the ads, is what I'm saying. The ads have been running for the last month for all these PACs for Mary, and she's putting out her own franking ads, which you're paying for, by the way. Me, American taxpayers are paying for those franking ads where they tell her she's informing. This is how they get legally away from the franking ads. They are informing their constituency of their efforts. But you and I are paying for it. So you got franking ads, you got PAC money, independent expenditures, and everything else. It's already out there. You could see that the machine is ginning up like big time. And she's got a war chest. She's got like a $2.5 million war chest already. But all you have to do is look at this one example and go, is this who we want representing us? Who says, I'm just outraged that Alaskans I'm frustrated. We need to listen in the Inupiat Slope communities, and then I'm putting this bill out for this reason, and then vote no for my bill. And then present. She doesn't even have the chutzpah to vote no if something changed and she changed her mind on something and it got away from her, which happens occasionally, right? People start a bill and then it gets amended or something happens or there's unintended consequences and people back off and they vote no. She doesn't even have the persistence or the backbone to vote no. She tells everybody else to vote no, but she votes present. Now, part of this, if you've been following Facebook and you've been following some of the stuff that's going on Facebook in the Mary Peltola circles, she is facing a lot of heat amongst her community. There are people that have her same last name that are calling her out on Facebook for joining forces with some of these, Willie Keppel was talking about it, the Mother Kuskokwim organization, how she was fighting for them and doing all, and the next thing you know, they're all calling her out because she has basically made a deal with some of the mines and maybe there's some financial dealings. And it's this whole, it's a whole thing. So she's got problems at home, which I think she's hoping to overwhelm with, because it doesn't matter. I mean, there are so few people does she have to keep those people happy? The people in the bush, the people in her communities that she said that she's part of and she's representing? Technically, if you look at it as a numbers game, no, she doesn't. I mean, she's got the Bush vote, the vote of the number of actual voters in the Bush is low enough that it doesn't affect or impact the entire, all she has to do is convince most of the people in the urban areas, and she's got $2.5 million to do that. She could actually afford to just ignore whatever they think out in the bush. It doesn't even matter. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. I mean, she's not, Chris just said the political term is wishy-washy. But see, it's not. It's to me, it's not just being wishy-washy. It is calculated. Right? She's trying to get on everybody's good side by sponsoring legislation that would reopen Alaska. Then she's trying to stay on the side of the environmentalists by telling all of her colleagues in an open letter to vote no on the bill. And then she's trying to stay in the middle and not take sides and not basically, alienate anybody else by voting present. It's not wishy-washy. It's highly calculated. That's the thing. Highly calculated. Anyway, it's that's the whole thing. So that's Mary. That's Mary. We will I just looked up and realized I'm already at the next break. So I got on a roll. You guys need to call in and stop me because I didn't roll right along. 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. If you want to call in, feel free to do so. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Okay, so first question. I should have asked this earlier. How's the quality today? Is it better all the way around? It feels better from my end, but I'm not out in your world. So how's it doing today? Is it good? Feeling good? Looking good? Okay. I found some things that were going on in one of my programs that were, anyway, I found some problems. And so, after a couple hours of troubleshooting, I didn't want to say anything right off the bat in case I was curse it, but we seem to be rolling along. So it's good. Sounds like a fresh brewed cup of coffee. Ha ha ha. I see what you did there, Bill. I see what you did. Ryan said, I want to hear about Penny. Who did I miss something? Did I miss something? LD Howard says, it is listening to her handlers and strategists and the dark money. She probably borrowed them from Murkowski. I mean, there's a lot of Murkowski type maneuvers going on there for sure. And the problem is the vast majority of the electorate is just not paying close enough attention to see they see, oh, she sponsored this bill. And they don't hear about the fact that later on she encouraged people to vote no. And they definitely don't know that she voted present. I thought you had a national update you mentioned early. Whoa, I spoke too soon. My mouse was freaking out. Is that better? Weird. I thought you had a national story update you mentioned earlier on. I'm going to talk about this story from Reason that is dealing with nonprofits. The penny thing is what got me. Penny who? Is there something that I'm, yes, gremlins in the system. Yes, that's exactly what it was. Some of it may have been internet, but quite honestly, as I look back at it and I traced everything back down, it may have been the actual program crushing my feed to the internet. That may have been part of the problem. I don't know. So anyway, I'm happy to say that fingers crossed. Everything is, can everybody can't cross my own fingers, man. I'm getting old. The arthritis in my knuckles is not working real well. I can't crank them out. It's all getting old. It's all getting old. Okay. I'm not sure I needed much more coffee this morning. I'm feeling a little juiced this morning for that one cup of coffee. Maybe that as it mellows down and it just concentrates the caffeine and makes it better. Maybe cold coffee is better. I had a friend that used to make a full pot of coffee, drink one cup, and then leave it. And then the next morning he would make like a cold coffee brew out of the old one and drink it all day through as cold coffee. He'd have one hot cup and then the rest of the day would be, leftover cold from the day before or whatever. Anyway. Can't cross your meat hooks. Have you seen the size of them? I mean, they are substantial, but it's like I can't, every time I watch one of those shows where they put somebody in handcuffs, I'm like, ooh, because I can't touch my wrist behind my back because my shoulders are too broad. I can't touch my wrist behind my back. And it's one of those things. It's either that or I need to do yoga. Get a little stretched out there. Okay. Keep on asking for callers. Sure. Call up right now. Number's right there. No. Number's right there. It always gets me. There's a special place in hell for the inventor of iced coffee. Why? Iced coffee is delicious. I love coffee in all its forms. Why would you? Man, you guys drank your Haterade this morning. I mean, like a full-on glass of Haterade. Coffee in all its forms is better. I mean, even Folgers is better than no coffee. Barely, but it's better than no coffee, right? I mean, come on. Oh my God. Yoga and tofu. You're in jeopardy of losing your man card. I'm secure enough in my manhood that I have done yoga. It helps. It helps a lot with stretching and everything else. I have done yoga. I've also done weightlifting. I've also done taekwondo. I'm secure enough in my manhood that I really don't care what people think. I've actually worn pink shirts. I know Harold is giving me a hard time because I've worn my pink shirt here, you know? I mean, iced Folgers, that might be a bridge too far. That, you might be right there, Jim, you know? I can't give away my firearms because they were all lost in a boating accident. It's unfortunate, but there you go. All right, here we go. The Michael Duke Show.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
I feel personally attacked in the chat room. We were laughing because, never mind. You had to be there, I guess. Why aren't you there in the chat room hanging out with us? They're giving me a hard time because I said I like yoga and tofu. I mean, they say I might lose my man card. From my cold, dead hands, you'll take my man card. Anyway, it's Thursday, and in case you couldn't tell, it's kind of open line, open form. I've got some other stories to talk about and things like that. Oh, see, that's a bridge too far. Bill just said Dukes probably likes roundabouts too. Oh, see, that's too far. That is too far. If you can't figure out a four-way stop, shame on you. Roundabouts. I mean, I know how to use them, but they are irritating. I'll just say that. I'll just say that. All right. So Mary Peltola, we're done, banging on her for today that, she just, it's just so painful to watch. And you could see the political machinations from early on in her campaign. And it's just proven out to be just absolutely true. So dang, we knew it was coming, but here it is. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Nick Begich has garnered enough horsepower to be able to really take it to her in this next election cycle. Now, I guess that actually leads me to another thought. And this is very much a squirrel day, but squirrel. That leads me to another thought. Why does everybody... Why did the people in the Republican Party, the luminaries, the powers that be, the movers and shakers behind the scenes, why in the world did they think it was a good idea to put Nancy Peltola? No, sorry. That was a Freudian slip. Nancy Dahlstrom. Why did they think it was a good idea to put Nancy Dahlstrom up against Mark Begich in this race? What, first and foremost, what does she bring to the table here? What does she bring to this, to the table that really, I mean, I'm sure Nancy is a nice lady. I've never met her. I've never talked to her. But it's kind of a nothing burger, right? Oh, she was in the legislature and didn't really, is not really a standout in the legislature, just kind of, did the thing. And now she's the lieutenant governor and has really done nothing, just really kind of not a standout there either. And now she's up there in why? That's a question. Why is she there? Is this the intentional spoiling of the race? Because they understand that this is all about, the ranked choice voting now is all about how the Republicans react to this, is how things are going to go, or how things are going to lay out. I mean, it's the whole putting Pat Chesbrough up against Lisa Murkowski, right? I mean, it's they always put a weak this is the Scott Adams, this is the Joe Miller, Lisa Murkowski, Scott Adams race all over again. And now it's a four-way race with ranked choice voting. And the Republicans decided it was a good idea to put up the vanilla milk toast, bland, kind of, again, nice lady. I'm not trying to besmirch her character. I'm just saying she is not an exciting, enthusiastic, relevant candidate. She's a known name. But why? You've got a Republican who did a damn good job last year, even though he didn't win. He would have won if Sarah Palin wasn't in the race. And alternatively, she would have won if he wasn't in the race. That's why he made a commitment this year that if he doesn't beat Dahlstrom in the primary, he'll pull out. Now, I haven't heard her say that she will do the same. She made some noise about that apparently at one of the things, but she has not made a commitment that I have heard or could find a report of that said if she loses the primary, she will pull out of the race to leave the field open for Nick. Nick has made that commitment several times on this program, on the record. You can go back and listen to it. What is, okay, all you Republicans out there, what's going on with your party? What's going on with the powers that be in your party that they would think that putting Nancy Dahlstrom up, and they're like, oh, no, it's not the party, it's the, you can't tell me that there's not movers and shakers in the background who are helping. Are you telling me that there's not kingmakers back there in the background doing this? You think Nancy Dahlstrom just thought, I'll just take from my cushy lieutenant governor's job where I've really not done anything, or my legislative job where I've really not done anything. And she was appointed initially, wasn't she? I think she was appointed initially. So I think I'll just run for the House. Okay. Okay. Why? Timothy in the chat room says it's either as a spoiler or it's intentional. Or both. Why not both? Those are not mutually exclusive. I just wonder. It is it's crazy. It's crazy. Maybe I do need more coffee because apparently I misspoke again. Hey, it's going to happen all morning. Just get used to it. Yeah, I mean, Nancy Dahlstrom can't even clean up the voter rolls. She can't even get that report released that Mike Shower was working for 3 years to get released, that Kelly Shabaka had put together as when she was in the OMB, and they did that report on the election stuff in the Division of Elections, and we still haven't seen that. She didn't release that either. We saw the redacted version, right? 96 pages with, all but 92 of them redacted. I mean, come on. That's just, yeah. It is insane what's going on. But why would, and I guess I have to ask this question because I've been blaming the party. And like I said, I don't know Nancy and I don't want to attack her personally, but Nancy, what makes you think this is a good idea? I'll ask her directly now. I doubt she's listening, but I'll ask you directly, Nancy Dahlstrom. What made you think that this was a good idea? What makes you think that there's a good candidate up there, a candidate who's gone out there and done the work last year, didn't win, but would have if Palin hadn't been in the race, right? In this 4-way ranked choice. And you're going to throw your hat in the ring instead of throwing support behind Nick. Is there some policy that you disagree with? Or you just absolutely think that by splitting the vote again in a ranked choice fashion, that furthers the cause? Or do you think Nancy would make a better candidate? Mom, it's a serious question. Do you think Nancy would make a better, Nancy, It's all over this morning, isn't it? Do you think Mary would make a better candidate? Do you think Mary Peltola, Nancy Dahlstrom, would make a better candidate? That's what, you know? What do you think? It just, the whole thing makes no sense. Now, some people are like, well, we just got party leadership. Carmela not Warburton, Warfield. Anyway, which I'm still trying to, I still would like to reach out to, and I haven't been able to get any contact information, and I haven't tried very hard, I'll be honest with you, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it would be nice if the leadership would take the party in a new direction. I will hold my breath right now. I will just, I will, let me rephrase that. I will not hold my breath because I probably would die. I will not hold my breath. I will wait and see, but I do not have caution. I'm not even cautiously optimistic. I'm just cautious at this point. I'm not even optimistic because we've seen this happen too many times. Well, new party leadership will fix it. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. All right. We gotta flip. I'm sorry. Our resident troll in waiting here says Mary has better public speaking skills than both Nick and Nancy. Mary does her homework, is direct and to the point. Well, I've seen Mary speak, and I've seen Nick speak, and I think Nick is just as sharp, if not sharper, and especially on some points, than Mary. I haven't seen Nancy speak much. There's been a few things that I've seen her say, but not in any length, at any length. But again, kind of forgettable, bland, right? No fire, no passion. Not an inspiring candidate. I can get behind Nick. Mary, you knew what you were getting. You knew what you were getting. There's just something about Mary. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Yeah. I mean, Harold, you're welcome to your opinion. He says Nick is a political garbage disposal. I thought he's been one of the better candidates that I've had on the program over the years because he's well-reasoned. He's a thinker. And I mean, I don't think you can argue with that. Mary is well-spoken for sure. She has a good presentation. She's got a good presence. I think some of her facts are questionable, but everything else. Nick just regurgitates Trump speak. I didn't hear that, but again, you do you, boo. It's your lie. You tell it how you want. Maybe Mary should be well spoken on the show, said Jeffrey. Ooh, shots fired. Shots fired. Let's see. Jennifer said when she spoke, and I'm assuming, Jennifer, you're talking about Nancy. You can confirm that, but I think she's talking about Nancy Dahlstrom. When she spoke at the state convention, the first time I've ever heard her, she said, "I'm the best candidate for the job." Okay. But that's followed up by, where is it right here? Rita, who said, DC Swamp is backing Nancy Dahlstrom, got a mailer from the DC Swamp for monies to support Nancy. And that is true. The congressional committee, the senatorial committee, all the powers, all the DC powers that be, the Mitch McConnell machines are backing a candidate like Nancy because she's status quo, business as usual, boring as milk toast. I mean, just like, that's what it is. Brian says TDS. Yes, I believe that is true. But Harold says he's usually right. He's usually right at being usually right. So we'll see. God, I love you, Harold. You're just, you can't. When Nick is on, he's like, oh, Nick, you're doing a good job. And then later on, he's like, Mary's the best. Nick is garbage. But when Nick is on, he's like, oh, yeah, Nick is going to do well and blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, there's a wind vane. You look just like it. Anyway. Nick will be in Kasilof this Monday at 6 p.m. at the Tustamina Lodge at an informal D6 District 6 meeting. Come join us and you'll understand why he's the best candidate. I think he's awesome. I really do. I think as far as candidates go, is he going to fix everything? No. We only have one vote in Congress, but it would be one more on that kind of liberty, Thomas Massey style deal. I mean, that's what it is. Ted Stevens would have saved Alaska. Ted had good points and Ted had bad points. It was a shame what happened to him. Absolutely a shame. And that should have led to more. That should have been like a Watergate-sized scandal when it all came out, but it just kind of quietly went away. But at least I'm actually... He supports Peltola, but he says, I'm the last real conservative Republican. The rest followed Trump into the political landfill. I didn't follow Trump into the political. I mean, I'm not a Republican, but I know many Republicans who didn't vote for Trump. But, again, it's your lie. You tell it. The last real conservative Republican. Oh, God. Only one vote in Congress. Present equals a no vote. Yeah, but you could do it without saying no, right? It's the same thing Murkowski did here recently on that. What was the vote that she was taking where she voted present? Same kind of thing. I mean, it's like, you see pictures of Mary Peltola and Lisa Murkowski all over the place, gal palling it around together. They are literally cut from the same cloth. And why the Republican Party hasn't done something about that? Well, they didn't want to. That's the problem. They didn't want to. That's the faux show. That's the faux show answer right there. Is they just didn't want to do anything about it. They are happy. The powers that be in the Republican Party have been happy with the status quo since 2010. That's when they stabbed Joe Miller in the back and did that whole thing. So 15 years. Business as usual for those folks. Absolutely business as usual. Anyway, well, I didn't vote for Trump either, Jack. I don't know if that's fair because, again, would you like a diarrhea milkshake or a poo sandwich? That neither choice was appealing, right? Neither choice was appealing. Did I think Joe Jorgensen was going to make it? Did I think Spike Cohen was going to make it? No, but I wanted to vote my conscience. It'll be fun. All right. We gotta go. Hour 2 continues. The Michael Duke Show. No phone calls this morning. It's weird. Maybe it's because I'm on a tear. I don't know. All right, we'll be back. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. It is your favorite station, right? I mean, you listen all the time, right? It's the only place where we deal with kind of strictly Alaskan issues. Every now and then we sneak something in. Like a little bit later, we might talk about this whole thing where the Treasury Department can dismantle nonprofits across the country. I've got the story up to talk about. But welcome back to the program, hour 2 of this Thursday edition of the show. In the last segment, I guess the last 2 segments, we were talking about the whole Mary Peltola thing and Nancy Dahlstrom and Nick Begich and everything else. And I was like, wait, my final question in the last segment was why, what's going on? Party luminaries, the powers that be, why are you guys doing this? Why are you pitting Nancy against Nick when Nick already had the head start? And in the numbers, the internal pollings from he's neck and neck with Mary Peltola. When Dahlstrom's eliminated, it's almost a dead heat. And I asked the question, why? And well, I think Fat Ray on YouTube, watching us on YouTube this morning, he makes a comment that I think is really probably the real answer. Thank you for that answer, my friend. He says, Nancy Dahlstrom is easy to explain. She's a win-win for the establishment. Either she wins and they get someone they can control, and this goes back to the fact that many of the powers that be, the DC crowd, the Mitch McConnell PACs, the National Republican Committee PACs, they're all throwing money behind Nancy because she's business as usual. So either she wins and they get someone they can control, or she spoils the race and they've blocked an insurgent candidate. I hadn't heard that phrase before, but I like it. I think it probably applies to Nick very well, the insurgent candidate. So Fat Ray wins the internet today for his comment on that. I think it makes total sense, total sense for that to go through. All right, maybe that's why the phones are not working. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Melissa just told me that that the phone lines are not working. Apparently, I mean everything else has been working perfectly, and the phone lines are not working. Melissa wanted to remind folks that if you're in Fairbanks and you haven't voted yet on Proposition A, that new $10 million to save our schools, that you should go vote no on it because it's not saving our schools. So feel free to go out there and feel free to go out there and do it to it. I would love to. And I wish I'm still a property owner of the Fairbanks North Star Borough, so I'm still going to be on the hook for whatever happens here. I wish I could vote in this. I wish I could vote in this election because I would definitely have voted no at least 2 or 3 times. If I could vote in that election, I definitely would have done that. All right. We do have a special guest who just called in, and I want to talk to him. I think Bob Griffin is on the line. You with us, Bob? Let me try this again. Let me see if I can get Bob up there. You with me? You with me, Bob?
Oh, I think I hopefully you have me now.
Okay. All right. Well, hold on a second here, Bob. Let me fix this, see if I can get it. Can you hear me now? All right. Hold a second, Bob. I'm going to call you right back. All right, so we're going to get Bob Griffin, who is with us. He called us. We talked to him here last week, and he's of course a nominee to be reappointed to the State Board of Education. And we're going to continue to talk with him about that. Hey, Bob, hold the line for just a second. Let me finish my thought before we go anywhere. We got the phones to work. But yeah, I wish I could vote in this Fairbanks election for this tax cap buster, because this is not just a one-time thing. This whole Save Our Schools thing, I just want to make a point. If you're living in Fairbanks and you're listening to the sound of my voice right now, and you hear this whole thing about Save Our School, and I saw the signs when I was in Fairbanks a couple of weeks ago. Save our schools. We need this money. Remember, this all started because they were looking for an additional $10 million to help fund the schools. And then Mayor Ward came out and said, oh, by the way, we found this $13 million extra dollars in the couch cushions over here, in some account that apparently somebody forgot about. 13 million just laying around. We found 13 million. And the bond people were like, well, that's great, but now we need more. Now we need 23 million. So they're out there. And by the way, this money, this money goes into the general fund. It does not go to save education. If you understand how the process works, that money goes into the general fund and could be spent on anything, which means this year they may spend it on education, but it's in perpetuity. So next year they could spend it on widgets and wood smoke police. They could spend it on anything they want. The borough's they just found $13 million laying around. I mean, it's madness, man. Total madness. Who's behind the vote yes signs? Well, the school district, the people who want more government. Just go look. You go look at the signs, read the signs. It'll have a paid for on there, and you go read it, and you'll figure out exactly who is behind all the yes votes. The school district is spending money educating, quote, if you can't hear the air quotes from here, educating the public on this vote. And they're basically vote yes. That's what they are. They're vote yes ads. Education. They're spending public dollars to do the thing. All right. Bob Griffin calling us up this morning. He sent me a text right at the top of the hour there wanting to talk a little bit about education. He says it looks like there's some Republicans who are aggressively opposed to his reappointment to the board, but can't seem to articulate why. Good morning, Bob. How are you, my friend?
Hey, good morning, Michael. How you doing? Can you hear me okay this time?
I can hear you just fine, my friend. Just fine. What a hot mess, huh?
Oh yeah, no. My reconfirmation right now is probably a coin toss, but I'm not particularly worried about it. I don't do this for work for a title, and if they're going to give me martyr status and not reappoint me, it's not going to slow me down at all, and actually probably give me a little bit more freedom and time to be able to bend the curve as far as improving our student outcomes. So
right.
One way or the other, there's a lot of people wanted me to change my answers or the direction I was predicting in order to have another 5-year term on the State Board of Education. But yeah, it's just not who I am. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and the people that don't like me they seem to not like me for some pretty interesting reasons. That it was not only that I was up this last week with Senate Education Committee with Loki Tobin as the chair. And I got some pretty tough questions, but really nothing of real substance. A lot of accusations that I was somehow doing something illegal, and they could never articulate exactly what it was. But didn't get to any of the specifics of was I illegally lobbying somebody, or was I advocating for illegal use of funds for correspondence allotment programs that have been going on for 10 years that I'm a big fan of, and 24,000 families have been enjoying recently. And oh, by the way, that Senator Tobin has a bill that pretty much does the same thing in order to try and quell the hornet's nest they've kicked by kicking that program over with the lawsuit. So yeah, a lot of things going on K-12. To follow up on the point that you were just making, though, in Fairbanks, probably very similar to Anchorage, when you pass a bond measure for something like that, you not only pass for the capital improvements that people are asking for, but it bypasses the tax cap and allows spending outside of the tax cap to maintain those assets. That's like you see that technique all the time in Anchorage. Why
right?
They bond for an ambulance. An ambulance is $600,000 for a couple ambulances, but it costs $20 million to man those ambulances, and that adds an extra $20 million outside the tax cap when you bond for those assets. And
no, I mean,
hey,
it makes no sense. I mean, this is the same borough, by the way, that couldn't, you had the school board coming to the borough saying, well, we need all this money. When I was on the assembly, we need all this money to fix these buildings up and all this other kind of stuff. And my question was, well, what about your building maintenance fund that's got millions of dollars in it? Well, that's for, I mean, this is the same kind of thing. They just found, Bob, $13 million just laying around. Now that's almost what, 10 to 7% of an overall annual budget. You just found 7% of an annual budget laying around in the couch cushions. And now that's still not enough, even though you were asking for 10 to begin with. I mean, this is blatantly a grab for money and for busting the cap.
right, and the majority of the places, Anchorage, I'm not as familiar with Fairbanks as I am with Anchorage, but I know Fairbanks has some overcapacity too, and when you leave overcapacity schools operating, it robs resources from classroom operations. It's essentially an elementary school. If you keep an elementary school open that you don't need, that diverts the equivalent to 25 teacher salaries a year just to maintaining a building and the unique staff to that building. So the battle is the districts, they need to be right sized. We haven't underfunded K-12 education, as I pointed out in my confirmation hearing the other day. We've between 2003 and 2023, we've funded per student, just at the state level, per student K-12 education, 30 points above the rate of inflation for 20 years. And it has been flatter recently, but we haven't produced better student outcomes because funding education 30 points above the rate of inflation. Our national test scores actually declined pretty significantly, about an average of a half grade level decline in test scores on national scale scores since 2003.
It's amazing to see the machinations and the political or the mental gymnastics that people have to do to justify the system as it currently sits, Bob. I've said this many times.
Yeah.
All you're doing is calling for more money for a system that's fundamentally flawed. You're seeing what we're doing with the money we're spending right now. We're spending $20,000 per student in the state, and we're getting a 3/4 graduation rate, 75% roughly are graduating. And yet a majority of those, when they try to go to college, have to take remedial courses and things like math just to be able to make it to a 100 level basic college math course. I mean, that's a failure. And yet all they want to do is throw more money at. They don't want to address the problems that are in the system. 60-second response to that. I'm going to take a break and come back to you. So go ahead.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That maybe when we come back, if you have a chance, we can talk about people are afraid to benchmark against other places that have had aggressive reforms, like Florida. They're amazing results in one of the most poorly funded systems in the United States.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll continue that discussion. Bob Griffin is our surprise guest for this segment of the program. We'll be back. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return with more in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Back right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
All right, Bob Griffin is our guest here. Before we jump back to Bob real quick, Ryan makes a comment, which is just oof. He says, I used to work for the borough. It was the worst job I've ever had in my life. I felt like I was wasting tax dollars, and I quit. I made it well known, my feelings. It was a position that did not need to exist with the amount of work they had, but they still have open positions today because, quote unquote, can't lose that money, unquote. That is the mindset, man. That is the mindset. And then Diana said, homeschooling is the best all around, my opinion anyway. I agree with you, Diana. I think it's great. And it's not the only one. There's an article in the Peninsula Clarion talking about Justin Ruffridge. Said that his kids are homeschooled. He receives the allotment, and that he himself was homeschooled as a child. I mean, this is not a fringe thing, folks. It may have been back in the day, but this is no longer a fringe thing. This is mainstream. And in fact, because it does better than regular brick and mortar style schools, correspondence and homeschooling statistically has a better track record than regular brick and mortar schools. Bob, when we get back, I definitely want to tackle what we were just talking about. And I also want to talk a little bit about some of the questions from your confirmation hearing, because again, it was just looked like they were looking for something, but you're right. They couldn't articulate exactly what. I think it basically came down to, we just don't like the cut of your jib, Bob Griffin. And so we think you don't need to be there. That was my take on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, and I was getting attacks from Republicans as well. Senator Bjorkman from the down on the Kenai borough was after me over a presentation that I'd made as a school board member, and he asked me, well, was this approved by the department? Because it had department logos on it, and I said I assume it was, since I don't have control over those logos on the slides that they prepped for me, and it was based upon from previous years before Senator Bjorkman was in the legislature. We'd made some presentations and gotten really good reviews from Senator Stevens and other people that were on the committees, and we kind of expanded upon that. It's interesting that Senator Bjorkman really attacked me for the information in the slides being my own. I'm proud that it was that the content in the slides was my own, but he never did address the actual content of the slides. Nothing in the slides that I presented in the previous years was political or anything. It was just information that didn't fit the narrative of the people that back him, and I think that's the grief that he has with that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's and as a school teacher, he feels personally attacked by you because you're attacking, quote unquote, the current status quo. But I mean, I guess throughout history, that's always been, but if you're going to innovate, the innovators are always attacked by the status quo, right? I mean, that's just kind of that's the way it is. The innovators are the ones that always get attacked because they happen to be fighting against the status quo. Everybody thought the world was flat until they discovered, nope, it's actually round. But they burn people at the stake for saying otherwise. That's just kind of how it is. All right.
And
go ahead.
And I was going to say that we've been really, really light on reforms, and I've advocated for going the direction of Florida has probably been the most aggressive education reform system in the United States for quite some time. They did their version of the Alaska Reads Act back in 2003, and the Florida and the Rutgers study that came out in February that showed each state and how adequately they fund K-12 education. Alaska was ranked second in the nation as second most adequately funded system. Florida was ranked dead last in the Rutgers study for the least adequately funded system. They dedicate less than half of their state GDP to K-12 education than Alaska does. But yet when you look at the metrics, like the number of kids who pass an AP course with a 3 or higher, it's 29% of high school graduates in Florida leave it with at least one AP test 3 or higher, and that's third in the nation, even though they're the least adequately funded system. Alaska is the second most adequately funded system. We were 45th in the nation, with only 12% of our kids leave high school with an AP 3 or higher.
Wait, you're saying that money doesn't equal success in this arena? Wait a second. That flies completely contrary to what we're being told, Bob. I mean, come on.
That's exactly the narrative that I've been battling.
Right.
That money produces better outcomes, but it's resource allocation. We allocate way too many of our resources to buildings and bureaucracies, and don't get that. It's actually about $22,000 a year that we spend per student in
right.
brick and mortar neighborhood schools.
Hold the line, Bob. We're about to rejoin the radio. Folks, like and share, like and follow, do all that stuff, the YouTube-y things. Let's get to it.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Yep. Welcome back to the program. We're continuing. It was a bit of open forum today, but Bob Griffin is called in, State Board of Education member, and he's up for reappointment right now. And I wanted to, you were talking about something right before we went to break, Bob, and I wanted to give you the last bite at the apple at that before I dive into the actual confirmation process and some of the criticisms that you were receiving. So I'll give you back the floor as far as the educational component and the what we were doing.
Well, and the main point is that it's not about how much we spend, it's how we allocate our resources. And we spend way too much on buildings and bureaucracies. One of the things during the House hearing that I got dinged for was voting against the capital budget that we forwarded to the legislature. I was one of 2 no votes on that capital budget, which included a project for $102 million for a cohort of, or a group of 170 kids in a village school. And I think the kids in those villages should have really good schools. But for context, it's a school for 170 kids, $102 million. The NINA Center in Anchorage was $111 million, only because it went over budget from its originally slated $78 million. So, that's not sustainable. That would, under the fairness protocol, require us to spend $10 billion on school buildings, and that would be $10 billion that's not available for paying teacher salaries or doing other things. We got to find
Right.
smarter ways to do things.
That's the whole problem with the BSA, right? I mean, there's no guarantee and no requirement for the BSA. They keep saying it's for the children. They keep saying it's for education, but there's no guarantee that any of that BSA money actually makes it into the classroom. In some cases, it's less than 50% actually make it into the classroom. It's all sucked up by administrative, overhead, facilities, buildings. I mean, all this kind of stuff. And there's just no guarantee. They keep telling us it is, but there's no guarantee. And in most cases, it's not getting into the actual classroom for teaching.
And it's pretty common sense that it's not, because at $22,000 per student, if you take a group of 25 kids, that's about $550,000 a year. And I don't know if any of your listeners can think of how much of that $550,000 is making it to my kids' classroom and their classroom teacher. not a big portion of that. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
It's crazy stuff. I want to talk with you a little bit about the confirmation itself, because I read through some of the piece. I didn't watch it, unfortunately, Bob. I mean, that's the other thing, right? I mean, we've all got to work and make a living, and I don't, there's not enough hours in the day to watch every committee, but I did read some of the synopsises and some of the articles and stuff. And it just seems like there are members of the committees that were, visiting your confirmation that were just, I mean, they were, it was like a smear. It was like a smear campaign, like a character assassination. Oh, so you went out and lobbied for these things? Well, yes, you did. Well, then they insinuate, well, of course it's illegal. It's the executive. You're not being paid to lobby. You're lobbying because you're an advocate, because you believe in it, because you're passionate about it. There's nothing illegal about that. It's illegal to get paid for it, right? And yet they want to insinuate that somehow you're breaking the law, but they can't articulate a single thing that's going on that you're doing wrong. They just don't like you, essentially, in the long run.
Right. And and of course, being on the State Board of Education is volunteer work, and they've criticized my work for the Alaska Policy Forum, of which I'm not only a volunteer and have been since 2009 for the Alaska Policy Forum, but I'm also a pretty major contributor to the Alaska Policy Forum financially. So that these allegations that somehow I was doing something unethical, and I guess lobbying. I probably should have pushed back a little bit against the term lobbying. I certainly advocated for the governor's veto to be protected with members of the legislature. Because the governor was absolutely right to veto SB 140, the education omnibus bill, because it was a record increase in K-12 spending with almost no reforms whatsoever. And I did support the governor's decision in that, and I encouraged members to sustain the veto, and they were critical of me because of that stance that I took.
It's frustrating, you just mentioned no accountability, no oversight. It's frustrating. We've seen amendments in different bills. I know Mike Shower put up an amendment to increase the BSA, but there had to be some accountability. There had to be some metrics attached to it. And they were just aghast. Oh, we can't do that. We can't. Oh, no, we can't do that. And yet now Loki Tobin's talking about trying to, quote unquote, fix the correspondence program, but she wants to put all these accountability measures in. Tutors must be accredited teachers and all this kind of, and you've got to account for everything it's only accountability when they want it to be.
Yes, and I tell you what, in my book, the number one accountability is when people vote with their feet. Is the number one accountability, and that 1 in 3 Alaska parents are doing something other than the easy thing to put your kids at a bus stop and pick them up 6.5 hours later, sending them to your local neighborhood school. That's a pretty stunning statistic when you think about how you're already paying for your kids' public education, but you're doing something much more difficult by either homeschooling, microschooling, sending them into a charter program or an alternative program or a private school. Those are the difficult things to do, and almost a third of Alaska parents have decided it's just because they're so worried about the outcomes of their precious children that they are going to go that extra mile and do something much more difficult than send their kids to the local neighborhood school.
Tell me what your thoughts are, Bob, on this recent article, and I haven't pulled it up here, but the gentleman's name is Anderson, I believe. He works for the Anchorage School District, and there was an article that came up here late last week that was talking about the Anchorage school districts and how the reason that they're closing schools and talking about all these problems has literally had nothing to do with the budget. It had to do with enrollment. And in fact, he said it was a mistake for us to frame it as a budget problem instead of an enrollment problem. We've just got too many empty spaces in the schools. I mean, they're down 6,000 or 7,000 students in just the last few years. And he said that's really the problem. And even Jarrett Bryant is saying, yeah, this is an enrollment problem. But they framed it as a right. That earlier in the year, it was, the budgets. If we just had more money, we could keep your local school open and do all. I mean, they just finally said the quiet part out loud. I mean, is that vindicating? Is it too little too late? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this is a position I've been advocating for since about 2014 when I served on the Capital Improvement Committee for the Anchorage School District. We've built out capacity in Anchorage for over 54,000 students, and by the ASD projections, we're going to have probably less than 34,000 students in those facilities by 2028. But this is a thing that has been trending a long way, and the Anchorage School District and Jim Anderson, says it's low birth rates is driving this, but the number of kids missing cannot be described by low birth rates. It's dissatisfaction with the system and people voting with their feet and moving their kids to programs because they are dissatisfied for a variety of different reasons. There's values misalignments, there's poor outcomes, and the school districts have not adapted to the needs and wants of the parents, and they have been essentially losing market share. It's crazy when you think about it. How if you had a restaurant that you were giving away free food from with the most expensive ingredients ever, but people were choosing to go to a facility that, or go to a restaurant that it wasn't nearly as nice as far as the ambiance and whatnot, and paying money out of their pocket and avoiding going to your restaurant. That's the situation we're in. We have, solid gold facilities and great transportation infrastructure and all sorts of things going on, but yet parents in huge numbers are choosing something else, and for a variety of different reasons. But I'd say number one is probably values misalignment, and number two is probably low student outcomes.
Yeah. It's some crazy stuff. Bob Griffin is our guest. He's a member of the State Board of Education, and up for reappointment right now, still in the nomination process. You said, Bob, that you think it's a coin toss right now whether or not you're going to get reconfirmed at this point, because there's a lot of angst and there's a lot of antagonism seems to be coming from the committees who have been interviewing you. But you think it's a coin toss at this point?
I think I need 31 votes. Last time around, I've always been a kind of controversial guy because I don't toe the party line of we need more money and the old Great Alaska Schools lineup. I've always been we've got to focus on putting our resources in places and reforms that do the best. And I'm not a guy who invents the wheel either. Too, I point to Florida and Mississippi and the amazing things that they've done by incorporating reforms into their systems. And like I said before, it's like that line from When Harry Met Sally. I'll have what she's having when I look at what Florida has done with their minimal minimal resources and some of the best outcomes in the country. I mean, low income fourth grade, low income Hispanic kids in Florida outperform upper middle income white kids in Alaska.
It's some crazy stuff. Bob Griffin, our guest. Bob, anything else you want to go over here? We can take you over for one more segment if you want, or if you've gotten your word out, you tell me. I'll lead you right up here to the break.
Well, Michael, I could talk all day on K-12 education. If you have continued interest, there's a couple other topics I can hit.
Yeah, no, I would love to do it. That's fine. I think this is an interesting topic. Everybody needs to hear it. And we need to continue it. So let's just keep going. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Again, Bob Griffin, our guest, will return with more in just a moment.
listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. We are ready to go. Bob Griffin is our guest. Denise says in the chat room, until we replace those running the show, it won't change. Get rid of all the superintendents and assistant supers. They make discussions that accommodate them, not students. I mean, look, Bob, there's been plenty of suggestions here and ways that we could do. I mean, we've talked about consolidation of school districts. We've talked about simply consolidating the health care of the various districts, not the districts themselves, saving millions of dollars a year. And yet all we get is pushback of this. I mean, this is the curse of this is how we've always done it. This is how we're always going to do it kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest arguments that they've put forward as well, we're not like Florida. Florida is different from us, and there's a lot of truth to that. Florida has a much higher poverty rate than Alaska. Florida has double the rate of kids who speak English less than very well. Florida it has a much lower rate of hold on. I'm sorry, I was interrupted there, but Florida has a much heavier backpack to carry as far as Alaska does in almost every other category, and yet they produce better student outcomes. And the some of the things that have been put forward is that our poverty rate in Alaska is the reason for low student outcomes, but yet we're 38th in the nation and our poverty rate. World languages average about 4.5% of the kids in the United States speak English less than very well. It's only 2.5% in Alaska. We rank right between Wisconsin and Kansas, I think, as far as kids who speak English less than very well. So that's this myth that we're have tons of ethnic diversity, and that causes us to have low performance is patently offensive when you think about it, because it insinuates that brown kids are hard to teach.
Right.
But and we're not particularly that diverse either. At the last Wallet Hub survey, I think Alaska was 117th of the most ethnically diverse city in the United States, and we were the 194th most language diverse place. And then that Alaska is so much more expensive than anywhere else. The latest Bureau of Economic Analysis that has come out from the U.S. Commerce Department is that Alaska is now the 16th most expensive state in the United States, mostly because we haven't seen a rapid rise in property prices like we've seen other places, and the miracles of modern logistics. We just get our goods to market a lot more efficiently than we used to in the past.
Absolutely. Harold, even a stopped clock is right twice a day. Harold says, question, why does the state calculate costs across the state yet simply distributes the money with no requirements to focus on classrooms? Why? Is it because of why? You tell me.
Well, there has been some attempts made in the past to have statutes that did just that, but they were proved pretty much ineffective. And again, I think the best accountability for those things is the funding should follow the students, and when people vote with their feet and do something differently, that's the best way to do that. But yeah, we've had statutes before where 70% of the funding was required to go into classroom operations, and you just can't keep all your buildings and bureaucracies running when you have those they were deemed unworkable. But I think we should probably try some legislative remedies along those lines and really highlight to people, because I don't think a lot of people understand that that of that $550,000 a year we're spending for every group of 25 kids, there's very little of that making it to that classroom teacher and the supporting materials for those kids.
Yeah, absolutely. We're about 60 seconds away from returning. Cassie's got a question about HB 400. Can you touch on that when we return to the radio? I'll ask the question and we can talk about that.
Yeah, I'm actually not familiar with HB 400. If
she says, could you please ask Bob to touch on HB 400 and the committee substitute HB 400 updated version? So if you're not up with it, that's fine. We'll
yeah, I haven't been following that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll come back to it. That's cool. All right, we're 30 seconds out. We've got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Bob Griffin is our guest. We are going to jump back into this and get down to the meat and potatoes. We'll give him the free rein here in this last segment to talk about whatever he wants to talk about here as far as education or whatever. So let's get to it. Here we go. Doing it right now. Okay, final segment for the show today, this Thursday edition. Had a lot of headlines and things to talk about, but we're subjugating all that under Bob Griffin, who called us up unexpectedly to talk a little bit more about education. We talked to him here a couple weeks ago. Some really good info, and we've gone through a lot of great stuff here in this in the first segment here of the last couple segments here of the show. But Bob, we're down to the last one here, and I know that you had some other things you wanted to talk about education-wise and bring up some other topics, so I'll let you drive the bus for a minute and tell us what else is on your mind in regards to this.
Well, I keep on harping on Florida versus Alaska, and again, Florida is a much more difficult place because of the backpack that they have to carry with the kids who speak English less than very well. They're much higher poverty rate and everything. But I wanted to drill down into some of the very interesting specifics about the outcomes in Florida compared to Alaska. That one of the things that I've been tracking again is the number of kids that are getting AP Test 3 or higher. I think for years I've harped on fourth grade reading scores and early childhood literacy, and I've got a lot of pushback that, well, nobody cares, whether fourth graders can read. It's what high school graduates are the thing that we're looking at. And just an amazing stat that came out of the Miami-Dade public schools, where Miami-Dade, if you're familiar with the demographics, about 350,000 kids, 94% ethnic minorities. Over 60% of the kids are free or reduced lunch, so they're low income. And over half the kids in Miami-Dade public schools speak something other than English at home. But in the 2023 high school results, they had a graduating class of 22,700 kids in the Miami-Dade public schools. But that year, and there are the number of kids who passed an AP Test 3 or higher was 29,500. There's 7,000 more AP tests that were passed with a 3 or higher than the size of the graduating class. It's absolutely phenomenal, the things that the reforms that Florida has, and maybe some future segment I can go through the 7 or 8 steps. But the key one was the Alaska Reads Act version that they passed back in 2003, and the downstream effects of having literate kids at an early age, and having reasonable accountability measures, measuring your school performances in a way that is easily understandable to the public. These have all had dramatic effects, and I can't think of a reason that we don't emulate things that were everything that was done in Florida. That would be my mantra, I think, going forward. tell me why we shouldn't be doing this when they're getting these kind of outcomes for the amount of money they're spending.
Right. Well, you apologize for saying I keep coming back to Florida, but Bob, that is the way things should work. We should look at places that are doing things well, whether it's education or dealing with homeless issues or whatever the issue is. Find places that have actually done something that has worked and emulate that. Why do we have to reinvent the wheel? Why do we have to shoot and poke around in the dark to try and figure out how to fix our problems? If somebody has overcome the issue, why not look at that and adopt it? And if it doesn't work exactly right for us, then we can modify it. But at least we know we have a model that works, that we can change some of the functions of it, or we can change some of the parameters, but we know that there's a model that does actually work, and we just need to adapt it to ourselves. Why should that be? I don't give a damn how they do it. They're so different than we are. Are they really? Are they really?
No, there is definitely some differences, but the the differences are actually in our favor for we should be having better student outcomes because of the differences, and it's based upon there's a education industry out there that wants a more expensive version of the status quo every year, and just ignore the man behind the curtain and the results we're producing. I guarantee this time, again, Lucy with the football. I guarantee this time, if you give me more money, well, that is what's going to produce better student outcomes.
Absolutely. I mean, we should be looking at it's like we should look at Arizona for their backpack funding. That's working well. Okay, we should emulate that. We should emulate the READS program. We should emulate, Austin is doing good with their homeless issue. Why aren't we adapting some of those ideas? Why, these are the things that we should be looking at and saying, if somebody else has already cracked this nut, why should we spend billions of dollars trying to hunt around in the dark for something that works? That's what blows my mind.
And this charter school authorizer that the governor asked for, and is part of House Bill 392, it was basically the only thing that was added to the SB 140 that he vetoed, to add a secondary charter authorizer. Common technique across the United States of very minimal, very very minimal reform, but the implications are great. Florida has secondary charter authorizers, so authorizers that are parents that are looking to apply for a charter can go to a secondary authorizer. Subsequently, Florida has 13% of their kids in charter schools, where Alaska it's a little bit less than 5%. They have 13% of their kids also in private school. Half of those kids are low-income kids or kids with severe disabilities that are paid for by the state of Florida as well. The example that we can't do that type of thing because we have a Blaine amendment. Well, there's 31 states with Blaine amendments, and many of them are doing these things. So it's it amazes me how many times the Alaska court system can seem to ignore federal precedent with the Supreme Court Zellman decision, Espinoza decisions that have come along the way. And eventually, I think this correspondence allotment situation is going to be solved if we can get it to elevated federal court, where we certainly the precedents would favor these 24,000 families that are in these correspondence allotment programs.
Well, and I think you hit on something. I think you're right. Eventually, we're going to have to, because what's going to happen is the market is going to demand it. You've already pointed out that 1/3 of Alaskan students are in some kind of alternative education. I mean, they've already opted out of the basic mainstream brick and mortar school system. That's a huge number. And I think it's just going to continue to grow. And so the market is going to demand that something has to be done. They're eventually going to have to face this sooner, I think, rather than later.
And this delusion that those kids that have been disqualified from the correspondence allotment program are somehow going to return their kids to brick and mortar local neighborhood schools, I think that is just a delusion. Once people have had that taste of freedom and understanding of having control over their kids' education, I don't think you're getting very many of those people back. I think they'll find another path. just because once you've tasted freedom, it's
Yeah.
hard to claw that back.
As a homeschooling parent, we homeschooled all 5 of our kids, and they're all graduated now. But if they had told me 2 or 3 years in that, hey, we're pulling the plug on this, I would not have sent my kids back to public school. We would have found a way to do it, on our own. But again, in an equity share, we were receiving monies just like other students were. So that made sense. I was still paying my property taxes to pay for all the local schools and everything else. I still wouldn't have sent my kids back to the regular brick and mortar because I thought we were doing a better job. And so you're right. Look at what happened with that big charter school in Anchorage. They thought those 800 kids were going to be dumped back. Nobody came back. It's shocking, I know, but that's what happens. And as you take and try and narrow it down and take more choices away from people, they're going to be more and more resistant to join back to be forced into that little niche, especially with the outcomes that they're getting right now from that brick and mortar school.
No, exactly. I think parents understand what the needs are of their kids, and they're getting more and more aware of the outcomes in the schools, and more and more bothered by again things I'll just simply lay as values misalignments of things their kids are being taught that they disagree with is going to tend to gravitate more towards it. It's just technologically easier to do with all the resources that are available on the internet. Those people that have left the schools are not coming back because Galena is sending them $2,700 a year.
Right. Exactly. Last 60 seconds or so, Bob, I'll give you the final thought and let you close things out. Final thoughts for today.
Well, it's really about how we spend our money and not what we spend our money on. The education in Alaska needs reforms, and I would propose that we not support any proposals that just increase spending on K-12 education, especially in long-term formula funding that don't improve, that don't include some things that have been successful in other places like Florida.
I would agree. Bob, when is this vote supposed to take place in your confirmation? Is it soon? Do we know?
It's the 10th of May, so
okay.
It is what it is. There's a lot of people. I've been poking my finger in people's eyes for a long time. And,
yeah.
If I get 31 votes, then I'll serve for another 5 years.
Yep. We'll see if we make it through. If not, then you'll be a regular guest on the program to talk about these issues, or maybe even if you are reappointed, we'll find out. Bob, thank you so much for coming on board, and thank you for calling in this morning. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Michael.
Folks, we're out of time. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show. All right. Bob Griffin with us for today. The Michael Duke Show. Okay. Well, that does it for today. We're ready to go. Tomorrow is Firearms Friday. I can't wait. I got to make sure the phones are working. Apparently the phones, I don't know. Who knows? We'll keep things rolling. Tomorrow, 6 a.m., baby, firearm stuff. We will see you then. You guys, again, be kind, love one another, live well. We will see you tomorrow. I'm going to go make a fresh pot of coffee now and get some good stuff. We'll see you then. No tofu in it, though. No tofu in the coffee.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.